Уважаемые зрители этой программы, сегодня математический центр Дальневосточного университета представляет вам своего визитера. Это такой международный ученый, работающий в области целочисленной оптимизации. И я хотел бы... зовут его Бисмарк Сингх. И я хотел бы представить ему сейчас слово. Наша передача будет вестись на английском языке, потому что, значит, английский это является международным языком общения ученых. И если вас you Bismark Singh, originally he is from India, but he studied in one of the best schools in India, and then he studied and finished his PhD degree in University of Texas in Austin, which is also very well known school. And work now is he's working in Germany in one of the famous German universities in Erlangen, and we are very happy at our mathematical center of Far Eastern State University to have him here. And now I want to ask Bismarck how it happened at all that the Indian boy became international scientist. Can you give us some ideas how it happened?
So thank you, Yevgeny, for having me, first of all, and thank you for all of you for having me here too. So извините, я мало знаю русский, so we try in English, as Yevgeny said. So I grew up in India. My childhood was in Punjab, and then I took the entrance exam for the Indian Institutes of Technology in India. So at that time there were 6 or 7 of these institutes. They are pretty well known. I was lucky to be selected in one of these. So they are pretty competitive. At that time, if I remember correctly, about 500,000 students used to take this exam, and about 5,000 would qualify. So I was fortunate that I got admitted into one in Delhi. In my first semester in Delhi, I was lucky to take a course from a professor who left a big impact on my career and my academic trajectory at that time. His name was Suresh Chandra. He taught me my first course in basic mathematics. So, but he was a researcher in optimization, which I only understood much later. So towards the end of my degree, I asked him, I would like to study a little bit more, but I'm not sure what I would like to study in mathematics. So he suggested search for operations research. Maybe it will be something that is useful to you. So then I looked this thing up and I read about it on Wikipedia. I thought, this looks cool and I can study it. It can be something for my master's maybe. Then I applied for a master's degree in the US, and I was lucky to again to have a scholarship by the University of Texas.
Was quite very famous mathematician Merton.
Yes. So then history repeated itself again, and I again took my first course with a professor who has still left a big impact on my life, and we still communicate, and I still take advice and suggestions from him after 10 years. So his name was David Morton. He taught me my first course in linear programming in my first semester in Austin.
Great. That's a remarkable story. Yeah, this is quite an interesting story. It basically repeats my way how I became a scientist. But shall we say a bit more about the subject of your studies? This is this integer optimization that is quite sophisticated and demanding subject, and it is very much in demand now, connected with the digital economics and things like that. So can you explain a bit more about it?
Sure. So I am not an expert in integer programming. I'm too young to be an expert, but I would tell you what I know about integer programming, which is one of the main topics of my research. Should we go on to a presentation? Yeah. So I have a few slides, Yevgeny, on integer programming, and maybe we just talk about these. So integers are, we know what integers are. We studied them in high school. So numbers such as 1 or 4 or big numbers like 100, or it could be negative numbers like minus 200. They could also be really big numbers with a lot of zeros like more than 1,000,000 and all. But we studied these in high school when we were really young. So these integers were all around us even at that time. So you might say, so what? So what's going on out of this? I know this story already. Integer programming is the theory where we have to choose certain optimal integers out of some set of integers. So some integers are more special to us than other integers, and we would like to identify these integers.
These sets are maybe quite complicated to find out.
Yeah, it can be, and I'll tell you in a second. But you would think again that what's the big deal out of it? Like you tell me about these integers. We studied it in high school, and now we are grown up, and we are still looking at these integers. So what's going on out here? But so let's say you work in a factory and your boss tells you that you have to decide how many shirts you have to produce for tomorrow. Now shirts is something you might make 3 shirts, you might make 5 shirts. You cannot make 3.5 shirts. So if you have to decide how many shirts to make in your factory to satisfy the demand for shirts for tomorrow, you are actually solving an integer program. But if you work in a power plant, for example, and then your boss tells you which are the thermal generators that you should be switching on. So again, you are actually solving an integer optimization problem to decide which of these generators should be on so that the lights around us are switched on. Now you could also work as a driver of a bus. So then you are also solving an integer problem around you, which says, should I go on this route or should I go on this route? So actually integer programming problems are all around us, but we just don't notice these things that are all around us which we are solving. So when we order food from Uber Eats or in Vladivostok, such as Yandex Eda, then the driver comes from the restaurant where he picks up the food, and then he must deliver it to different parts of the city so that everybody gets the food. But he would like to reduce his effort to bike, so he would take the shortest way that's possible. And actually this is a well-known problem in integer programming, which we call as the traveling salesman problem. So these things are around us, but we don't really know them often by names. Only in the mathematical community do we know their names. So if you work for the federal government, then you might have to decide, I want to send a certain number of notebooks or certain number of vaccines or certain number of resources to different regions. how should I do this in some fair and efficient way? So this is a problem that we call in integer programming as a resource allocation problem. You have some resources and you would like to allocate these to different regions. So it's also again all around us. If you are a person who is connected to different persons, like let's say you have a few friends, I'm sure you have many friends in Vladivostok, then you are connected to people all around you. So you could say that like now we have the pandemic, then which is the connection that I should break so that people have a lower number of infections to each other. So it's again an integer programming problem, but just that we don't call it by this name when we go and talk to our friends. So even in puzzles, if you like to play chess, and I know in Russia шахмат это очень popular. So
definitely. Especially among mathematicians.
yes, so we still have to play a game of chess before I I go and
Definitely.
leave. So, but you will let me win, I hope. So there is let's say you have these 8 queens on your chessboard, and then you have to arrange them in a way that none of the queens come under attack from each other. So this is again an integer programming problem.
It's quite famous, and it was solved just recently, actually. To give all positions, it's quite demanding problem. But shall we talk about complexity of such problems?
Yeah, so the question in integer programming comes down to the question of making a good choice. So you might say that all this, what I said, is really easy. It doesn't look very complicated or not complex. So why are you spending your living on such simple things? But the question of making a good choice is not very easy. So we, people who work on integer programming, people like us, integer programmers, we work on choosing from a range of different possibilities. So these possibilities could be just too difficult, or sometimes too easy too. Sometimes making choices are easy. You have to decide between eating chicken today or eating salmon. So you have 2 choices, and this is not perhaps very hard to make. I would always go for salmon. So this choice is easy. But sometimes choices are more harder to make, and they influence your life decisions for what would be an important choice to make. Although the options could be few, but they are really important to decide on. But sometimes the choices can be just too many to choose from. So how do we go out deciding from all of these range of possibilities around us? So you asked me an interesting question about why is this complicated? What's so complex about it? So if you have a lock for your bicycle which has 4 digits on it, then there's 10,000 choices that could be made with this lock itself. So just from 4 digits. But if there is a burglar who tries to take your bike away, and if he goes through all the 10,000 choices, then he is guaranteed to take your lock away. But if you have to distribute, for example, antivirals in all the pharmacies of Texas, as we did in some recent work, then the number of possibilities is more than the number of atoms in this universe. So you can imagine that we cannot just start counting all of these possibilities. It will take more than our lifetime to
the life of the
to do this. It's just not possible. So in mathematics we call such problems as hard or easy, and they have a different definition for us. But we can easily see that this problem is hard to solve if we have to just start counting all the different possibilities for things around us. Now, if we have to, if we are in Germany, where I live right now, and we have to visit all the major cities in Germany in a shortest possible way. So I have still not visited all of these cities, but if I want to go to all of them just once and make the shortest possible tour out of this, the combinations are, over here are again just too many.
Enormous.
Yeah, so it will take more than my lifetime to solve these things. And what our job is, we design smart methods to be able to solve these attractive looking problems, but without going through all the different possibilities.
Thank you very much for this very good introduction in this subject. Of course, now the size of the problem which needs to be solved can be just enormous, and it is very important to develop such smart methods, because all this digital economy without such method will be helpless. So what I want to ask you also, this is your first time here in university, in our mathematical center, and what is your impression out of you have, and what do you think about the possible cooperation between us and some common research studies, teaching, and so on?
Yes, so it has been a good time visiting the university for the last 10 days and visiting you. This is something I have enjoyed, and there is a lot I'm learning from you in your research. I had only heard about you before in papers, but now it's nice to see you in flesh and spirit now. So I think there's several possibilities for us to collaborate on together, especially given the fact that we both work on optimization, and you have great expertise in continuous optimization, for which I can perhaps complement some possibilities with the integer or discrete optimization.
To be also a mainstream of development now in this area, so it is will be at the very front end of of this research. So we basically finished our discussion, and so thank you very much for listening, and wish you all good time, and please come again.
Спасибо. Пока.